And I'm really happy now to be here with Vinícius. Vinícius, he is a Brazilian researcher, and he has quite a nice story. We were talking yesterday about your trajectory in the current
non-linear trajectory, I would say.
Yeah, about your trajectory is quite interesting, and we want to share also some kind of experiences, not only professional but also personal experiences, no? How we take decisions and so on in terms of getting a scientific career. So in this case, I want to ask Vinícius, if you can tell us a little bit about what you studied, where, and what's your current situation, no, during your studies, and what's your relationship with the Marie Curie scholarship and the association as well.
Okay. Well, so please be a little patient. There's a few elements in this story. In fact, I am an electrical engineer as a background, and I did my studies in Brazil until 2003. And it was an interesting story because when I was about to finalize my studies, I was working in this research lab with the beginnings of neurotechnology there. And then my then supervisor of undergrad studies, he asked me if I wanted to do a PhD with him. And I told him, wow, I am an electrical engineer and I'm doing a PhD in neuroscience. This is crazy idea. He said, wow. He said something really interesting, something like, do not allow 5 years of your life determine the rest of your life. If you like it, just go ahead. And I did. I was really happy. I did what I consider an interesting piece of science. So I did a PhD in a neuroscience thesis, although it was a little bit different course. I did a first postdoc in Brazil, and then I got a position in a Brazilian Federal University, where I developed most of my research line on electrical stimulation, the treatment of neurological disorders, particularly epilepsy, but also pathological anxiety. In 2000, more or less 2017, I was really considering going abroad because I did not do any kind of studies abroad up to that point. And so I heard about this researcher. She's based in Italy. I got in touch with her. Then in 2019, I hosted a conference. I called her. The conference, fortunately, was a success. I had a great team, and she okay, this guy can do good job. I convinced her, can do things. I convinced her. Okay. Yeah, then we wrote the project, the Marie Curie project, for the 2020 call. Unfortunately, we won the grant, but then we were having the pandemics. So I needed to delay because the borders were closed. And then, but I was able to arrive in Italy in 2022. Okay. So I did 2 years of fellowship there. Then I followed with another postdoc at the University of Génova. I did my Marie Curie at the Istituto, Italiano di Tecnologia, developing also, again, neurotechnology, but for this time, for stroke. And now I am considering transitioning my career definitely here in Europe. There are some opportunities in the region. So next chapters will be to be determined yet, but are promising, I would say.
The current, at least, and in the current situation, there are some perspectives, no?
There are
a little bit here.
Yes, solid ones, I would say.
Great. I think that from your story, we can kind of collect some of these pillars, fundamental pillars to research, no? How to transition through career. And in this case, I think it's quite important what you mentioned. For example, I noticed this element, interdisciplinarity.
Absolutely.
Being an engineer yourself and then transitioning into different fields, this really recollects all this interdisciplinarity, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is quite important also to open other doors, right?
Yeah, I would say that you hardly make a big difference or a big impact if you are too narrow in a field. So you have, because it's just not matters of what kind of papers that you read if you're in different fields, but they also have different ways of thinking in different fields. And maybe you just need a new perspective to solve one problem in your field, but because people do not have usually that perspective, you may import from other fields and you can solve things easier, I would say. So absolutely, I would say that my whole career was strongly marked with interdisciplinarity, which sometimes can be a challenge, because at one point, while I was doing my PhD with neuroscience colleagues, they would state that I was not a neuroscientist because I had electrical engineering background. On the other way around, I was telling my engineering colleagues that were working in industry that I was studying neuroscience, and they told me, so you're not an engineer. So I am both. Exactly. I'm trying, but a different kind, let's say.
So you're diversifying, right?
Absolutely.
So you can have tools from different areas that you can, at the end, compile them. You can use them. You can fuse them.
Absolutely.
Everything. Yeah. And I think it's quite important what your supervisor told you. 5 years of your life should not determine your future. Absolutely correct, I think, because we as people, as humans, we have this evolution also through our lives. So I think it's a very, very good message.
He was a very wise guy. He's still a friend and a major partner, a research partner, and also a big friend.
Exactly. The counterpart.
Exactly.
Here comes the personal thing. We as researchers, we're persons, right? Yeah. And you cannot exclude that from the equation. You always have. I always tend to think that we should always take it into consideration or take it into the equation, to take decisions. Of course, you also have to think on personal aspects. And I'm talking about this because people who might be seeing this video, it's important for me to transmit a message, to send a message. And these messages are quite important from your experience. And with this in mind, I would like to ask you personally, how do you feel now being Brazilian, having been living for so long in Brazil, now being here in Europe, and then what's the perspective for the future?
This is a hard question, but I like the question in any case. So, of course, there are different feelings with different valences in this moment. Of course, I miss home. I am very family bound. When I was doing my first postdoc, I wanted to go back close home because my postdoc was like, Brazil is huge, as you know. It was like 3,000 kilometers away from the place where my parents are. But so, of course, this makes a big difference, and we always ponder on that. But the thing is, I notice myself, and if you have this as a research, which is you are restless. You cannot, you're not satisfied with the continued and the repetition of your experience, and you need something new. I have bad news, or which is actually good news, is that you are a citizen of the world. Exactly. Because news are all over the world. I heard a philosopher, a Brazilian philosopher, recently saying something really interesting, which is, well, although I would not use exactly the same word, but he said, the failure fuels war. So when you're absolutely in comfort zone, below your covers, it's warm, it's comfortable, but it means you're not moving anywhere. So there's this annoyance, and there is real value in being perturbed, in being disturbed, and being a little bit stressed. It should not be paralyzing, of course, but if you are too comfort, maybe you're not growing. You're not going anywhere, neither growing. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. So probably a message could be this one: if it feels like if you fear, if it feels uncomfortable, if you feels stressy, it's okay. But as you say, it should not be too much. Should exactly. be something in between. But these kind of challenges are the ones that really finally they open doors.
Absolutely.
That opening doors.
I would like to add something else. I have been having excellent conversations, as we had last night in the dinner, and many others, because it's in fact a challenging time in my life. So as I'm probably transitioning my whole career with my family here in Europe, and I've been hearing and thinking and reading a lot about these kind of challenges. So I may be able, in fact, to share a little bit of what I learned. And among many other things that we could speak of, one of the things is that when doing major transitions, when making big choices in life, where to head, where to move, where to live, there will be always risks and uncertainties. But you have to understand that you cannot control everything. So I don't know if Brazil in 10, 20 years will be a major economy with everybody rich and happy, or will be a disaster. The same thing here in Europe. In these times of geopolitical instability, it may go very bad soon. So you have to control, you have to deal with what you can in fact control, which is your dedication, your efforts, your discipline. And so if you stick to that, the chances that you succeed are really increased. So do not think much about, okay, what's going to be in the future. You cannot control that.
Exactly. I fully agree. And I love that you took this this topic, because it's a very common and current topic. It's a hot topic, but if we don't talk about it, it's not a topic. So if we talk about it, we can face it in a better way. We can just, okay, that's the situation. I cannot do anything about it. I can only do what it's under my control.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Which is
I love it. I would like to close with that, but I will not close with that, because now I want to take the opportunity to talk about also science. We're talking about what's beyond science, what's around science, how we build careers and so on. But now just a little bit talking about what's inside science. So you are now working in the neuroscience field, right? And I would like to please tell us about your current organization of this event. So that probably there are some people interested in something that he has to say and to offer, actually.
Thanks a lot, Angelica, for the opportunity, because it's a major initiative that we really appreciate, and we are putting our best efforts to make it succeed. I am currently vice chairing a conference that will take place in La Plata, Argentina, in November this year. It's called the Latin American Workshop on Computational Neuroscience. So it's an event that has been taken all over Latin America. It started with the first 3 editions in Brazil. It was the one that I chaired and that I invited my then to-be supervisor here in the INAIL-IIT while I was chairing one of these events. So there's a story. Yeah, exactly. And then in 2023, it was the first time that it was hosted outside Brazil, in Colombia, in Vigado. So it was fortunately another very big success. And now we're taking under the presidency of Alan Talevi, a very close friend and colleague, collaborator too, will be hosted in Argentina, La Plata. The thing is, it's called Workshop on Computational Neuroscience, but it's highly interdisciplinary. It's much more than computational neuroscience. It's also neuroengineering, artificial intelligence, and neuroscience in general. So the idea is exactly to provoke the dialogue between these areas, foster interdisciplinarity, so we can find the solutions for the brain, which is highly complex, and we need efforts from all over the place.
Different perspectives.
Different perspectives, exactly. So please, the registrations are open, submissions are open. So join us.
You are a researcher working in neuro fields. I would say neuro.
Neuro fields, good.
Let's leave it open. Neuro something fields.
Neuro stuff.
Neuro stuff. Please feel free to look at that. We can also add the link of the event.
By the way, in these conferences, we have a very brilliant mind, which is Norberto, also another colleague, my scientific grandfather, the supervisor of my supervisor. So, and he has this knack for art. So there is also some content of neuro art. So people that do art that relates to neuroscience, which is very, very interesting also.
Yeah, it's a very good example again of interdisciplinarity.
Absolutely.
So please try to join if you are in these fields. No, I think there are some spots that people might apply and present your research in Argentina.
Exactly. And by the way, we always have some funds for supporting travel, trips, passages. It's not, let's say, lots of money, but we can always bring some of these students if they prove that they need it and they submit it. We can support your travel.
Excellent.
Up to a certain point, unfortunately. We are always poor.
Yeah, but we can just
Embrace it.
embrace it also. Excellent. So thank you so much, Vinícius.
Thank you.
It was a nice conversation.
It was excellent.
Yeah, I think it's important to share experiences, because then you can also open some ideas, you can also open some doors, you can think about different options on the way.
Our careers, scientific careers, are complex, and again, filled with uncertainties. And if we have these open conversations, it will certainly help new talents and people wanting to join us.
So if you are interested on what he is doing and on his research, we will leave his contact so that you can approach him directly. So thank you again, Vinícius. It was a nice conversation. We hope to continue. Let's try to do it also in the future. Let's see what happens, no?
Absolutely.
How things changed.
Count on me.
Okay.
Very nice. Thank you, Angelica.
Yeah, and also all the best to you. Please think out of the box. There are possibilities, there are opportunities. We just need to find them, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so bye-bye.
Bye-bye.